Pat. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all the crafty things I'm currently doing. And in the last few weeks, that's been pretty much all knitting, a little bit of crochet, which I'll show you in a moment. So today is Sunday, April 5th. It is Easter for those who celebrate. Happy Easter and nice springtime here in the southeast part of the United States. I do have a couple of finishes. First of all, oops, I got like stray yarns going on here. I finished a Sophie scarf. That's from the popular pattern right now from Petite Knits. I know I have a few problems. There's a few. This yarn did some splitting, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't like looking at it up close sometimes. The yarn I used was Plymouth Superwash DK in the colorway Blush 1127. It's 100% merino wool. I used 50 grams, which is about 130 yards. Some of it could be my experience with knitting, that the yarn was splitting on me. And I ended up doing this twice because the first time I had all kinds of problems. I was like 3/4 of the way through and it just wasn't turning out the right shape or size. So I frogged it and started over. But as I'm sitting here looking at it, I still see problems. But overall, it's a pretty nice scarf. Will I knit the pattern again? Probably. Probably will try a different yarn and see if that helps, and as my experience improves. So that's my first. I finished that about a week ago. And the pattern is pretty simple to follow. And I kept dropping stitches on the I-cord, and I don't know how to correct that. So I need to learn. I know how to pick up drop stitches when it's stuck in that stitch, but I need to learn how to pick up drop stitches when it's garter and also when it's on the edge. So that's, that is what it is. I have been doing a little bit of crocheting, and what I've been crocheting are these little hearts. These are great for scraps of thread. You can make them smaller. This is 2 rounds. You can make just the 1 round and still have a little heart. And I've been handing these out, giving these to people, random people, just, here, have a heart. Hopefully it will remind people to be kind and to have hope, and considering how the world is right now for everyone. And so I'm making them different colors. I will link the pattern below. It was a free pattern from sarahmaker.com, SARAHMAKER.com. And she has variations of how to make them in 3 different sizes. There's a mini heart with 1 round, a medium-sized heart with 2 rounds, which is what I did, and then a 3rd heart with 3 rounds. And some of the ones I did with variegated thread. Some I did with, if I ran out of one color, I just started with another color. And they were multicolored. You can do, round 1 in one color, round 2 in another color, whatever makes you happy. And I think these are, I tied the ends together so people can hang it if they want, or you can pin it on a bag or a shirt, or you can just ignore the hanger. You can hang it somewhere, a knob on a door or a drawer or in your car, or you can, pin it onto your shirt. So I enjoy making those. They're quick, easy, gives you a little dopamine hit of, hey, I finished something. And they seem to make people smile. So I gave out about 6 or 8. I probably have about 6 more I've made. Like I said, you can make them in whatever color. I just am using bitsy. I don't know how many yards it takes. It doesn't take much. Of course, some of that depends on the hook size you use, how tight you crochet. But again, I will link the pattern, her website below. so you can get the pattern in there. I think she has an option if you want the ad-free PDF pattern. She has a link that you can pay a couple of dollars for. Then a friend of mine who does not do yarn things, she's crafty, but not with yarn, sent me a picture of some mini emotional support chickens. So I went on a hunt for a pattern. And I found one, and this is the first one I made. He's a little, she's a little wonky. She's got a little wonky eyes. I didn't use safety eyes. I just used yarn for the eyes. They work up quickly. The pattern I used came from Lisa Auk Crochet. That's spelled Lisa, then capital AUCH. LISA Crochet. And I found it on Ravelry. And again, I'll leave the link below. You can buy individual patterns, or you can buy this pattern that has a full-size chicken as well as the mini chicks. And those aren't crocheted eggs. And then here's the mini chicks. And then these different variations of ducks. I tried to make this duck, this rubber duck. I use worsted weight yarn, and that's what with my hearts is just random acrylic worsted weight. Now she calls for a blanket yarn. I think is what she used. She said you can use any yarn, but she used Scrumpalicious, super chunky, and obviously you can use whatever hook size depending on your yarn. What she used is kind of a chenille or blanket yarn or something. So it looks a little different, but I'm not going to show you the duck. It doesn't look like a duck. Which is probably me, not her pattern. The patterns, you need some experience to understand the patterns. There's a few things that are a little vague, but it is a paid for pattern. I think it was $10 for this to have the whole group in this Crochet Chicken Army. 8 different crochet and chicken and duck patterns. So there's the large emotional support chicken, mini chicken. You can put on earrings, which is what this is. There's a crochet chick or duck pattern, and the sitting rubber duck. That's the one I tried to. So there's 4 different things, but there's different sizes for each one. I struggled with the sitting duck. I think I may try it again. Like I said, mine didn't look like that, and I didn't get this little. I don't see in the instructions a little thing on its head, and maybe I didn't stuff it right. It just doesn't look right. But with the little check, so let me do a few more of those. Send some to some friends. Those are all the things I've finished. I am almost finished with my multicolored poncho. Here's one square of it. I have started sewing the squares together. I don't have that handy, but this is the pattern I used, Bernat 60s square poncho. But obviously, I just went with my own colorways. I'm just using random acrylic yarns. I don't know the brand. There's probably different brands in there. But I'm using, the bright colors. I don't think I'll put the fringe on it because I'm not a fan. So there are 10, I'm sorry, 8. You do 8 squares, 8 of these squares, which is just garter stitch, but you start in the corner and you increase and then you decrease. Well, you get to a certain point, you decrease. Well, I went to put them together. I was laying them out and realized a couple of my squares are not the right size. Completely redid one square that was just way too small. It was like an inch and a half too small in one direction. now I'm redoing one that I think at some point where it should have been decreasing, it started increasing and then I started decreasing. So it was not even square. So I'm back to, so I frogged back to where I think it's right. And I will continue that. Been working on them today. Let's see. The next thing I've been working on is this. I took a dishcloth pattern from Yarn Inspirations. This is free, and I will download it. Sorry about the color changes. Uh, and this originally called for Lily Sugar and Cream scrub off, but I just used cotton yarn. I made one of these little dishcloths, but I decided I want to make a dish towel. So I'll be honest, I don't remember now. I should have written it down. I think I did write it down. I should have looked it up. How many I cast on, and I probably have another 6 inches I want to go. This will shrink up some once it's washed because I did a little swatch and it tightens up. It's not as loosey-goosey. I don't know if I'm going to like it as a dish towel or not, but we'll see. And the yarn I'm using for that, you can see that's color changes. Real spring looking, is something from Loops and Thread that I bought probably 6 or 7 years ago. Cotton Colors, yep, by Loops and Thread. It's worsted weight. It says machine wash warm, do not bleach, dry flat. I put this in the dryer because I'm gonna tumble dry dishcloths. I don't care if it shrinks some. It's 100% cotton. The color is starfish. This is it. There's the color C003. This is what the band looked like. 7 ounces, 394 yards. I won't use all of that in this, but I don't know why I bought it. Like I said, I bought it probably over 6 years ago, before 2020. But I'm enjoying doing it. And then the last thing I'm working on is a scarf. If I can get it off here. I'm using regular needles, knitting flat, and I'm just doing a garter stitch. This yarn is from Juniper Moon Farm. It's called Iris. It is 70% alpaca, 20% silk, 10% wool. Holding this skein is like holding a ball of fluff. It's so soft. And it does have a halo. I don't normally like fuzzy yarns, but this is so pretty and so soft that I had to have it. I got it at my local yarn store months ago. They had it on clearance. The colorway is Tropical Lagoon 003. That's the colorway of everything I'm stitching right now. The color number. It says a luxurious blend of Surrey alpaca, mulberry silk, and superfine wool raised ethically in Argentina and designed in Tuscany. It is considered a worsted weight, but I am using US 3 needles. That's a 3.25 millimeter. These are Likey, or maybe it's called Luca. We had a discussion the other day at my local yarn shop. LYKKE. These are their wooden needles, and I do like them. I tried the DPNs in the wooden one, but I broke one because I was just like, had really tight tension. But these are nice needles. But yeah, it's because I didn't, if I did it with a larger needle, it would be too open. My LYS, they have they had done a sample like this. No, I think they did theirs in stockinette, and, but I'm doing great. No problem with purling, but this I would just do the garter stitch. It is you really have to pay attention because it's easy to drop a stitch and not realize it, because of this yarn, just the way it yeah. And I had started this earlier, but I had it, way too wide, when I first cast it on, and again, I don't remember I'm sorry, I didn't look up my notes of how many I cast on. This should be about 8 inches wide when it's all said and done. Well, actually, it's over 8 inches, and I may be having a problem with hopefully, the I don't know, I may have added stitches. Darn it. I don't wanna frog it. I'll figure it out. It may be a little wonky, but, it's for myself. I'm not entering it in anything to be judged on, so there's that. Um, and that's all I'm working on right now. Speaking of judging, it a reminder that if you're interested in entering any of your crafts in your state fair or local fairs that have entry division, now's the time to look and see when things are due. I know here in Georgia, most things are usually due around the beginning of September. So if you want to make something specifically that you haven't started or you haven't finished, you need to, especially if it's something like cross stitch where you need to get it framed, you might want to go ahead and start thinking about that. Of will you finish it this year for this year's entry and planning ahead? Uh, I will probably still be doing things at the last minute. Hopefully, pay attention and get a few things together. I have some things in mind. In our state fair, it doesn't have to be made in the last year. It's like as long as it was made within the last 5 years. Of course, I don't know how they prove if you didn't make it in the last 5. That's between you and your conscience and whatever your rules are for your fair. But I do encourage you to enter some things, and even if you're not up to entering, if the fair is not very far away, go look at the crafts. That's what last fall, it's the first time I'd been to a fair in decades. The state fair. Well, Georgia has the state fair and the national fair. What used to be called the state fair is now just a midway, just games and rides. We now have something called the national fair, and that's the agricultural fair with animal exhibits and arts and crafts exhibits. And last fall, a friend and I took a day off and met up at the fair and just spent the day looking. There weren't a lot of animals that day there, but looking at some of the 4-H exhibits and the home arts exhibits, the crochet, the cross stitch, the sewing, the painting, the photography, and of course enjoying some good fair food from the fair because there's always good just food there. And we plan on doing that again this fall, possibly with another friend who I recently met someone that we've become friends, and she was like, "Oh, I want to go too." It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours for us to go from where I live. And, but I mean, we spent, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours there, if that. And like I said, we had no interest in the games or the entertainment. There was some entertainment. We didn't really care about the games, entertainment. But I got to pet a sheep and see lots of artsy craftsy things. That was interesting. And oh, we did see a cow give birth. There's like a whole barn where they have cows that are about to give birth, and you can stand around and watch the cow give birth. And there is someone explaining over the speaker what's going on, and if they have to help the cow, they're explaining why that's happening and what they're doing. So be prepared for that. There were children there watching it, which I think is fine, and it's educational. Uh, some may have not been quite prepared for that. I think overall, most of them were like, "Oh, okay." Which some of the kids there are farm kids because they were there showing their cows. So it wasn't as traumatic as it may sound to city people. I'm trying to think, was there anything else I was going to mention? Yes, I'm going to pause for a second and go get a book I bought. Actually, it's two books. Crochet Iconic Women, Amigurumi, 15 Women Who Changed the World. As you can see, there's RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there's Cleopatra, Queen Elizabeth II, that's Jane Goodall. There's quite a few. Greta Thunberg, I hope I pronounced her name right, Audrey Hepburn. I think that's Rosa Parks. So they're about 8 inches tall if you do them to gauge, if you use the yarn she calls for. They call for a DK cotton yarn and a 2.5 millimeter crochet hook, which is tiny. I looked and it's a tiny hook. I have one. Here's Marie Curie, and you even can do her little beaker flask. Malala, I'm sorry, I'm not good at how to pronounce her name. And that tells you some. When she was denied the right to study by the Taliban in Pakistan, she was not afraid to defy them and fight for her rights and those of other girls. They responded with a death threat, and Malala was subsequently shot in the head by a Taliban gunman in 2012. She survived after many struggles, but was not able to return to her dear home country. So it tells you a brief, but you can look up more, obviously, a brief thing about the person, about the woman, and why they're featured here, why they're considered iconic. Amelia Earhart, and also. And then, and that is from, this was put out a few years ago. Let me see if I can find the I want to say 2020. Yeah, this was published in 2020. And then there's a second one that was published in 2023, More Crochet Iconic Women. This one has, this is Dolly Parton, Queen Elizabeth I. One of these has Queen Victoria. I don't know which, I'm not seeing her now, but I swear one of them has Queen Victoria. This is the one I want to do first. This is Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper, which is what I have bookmarked. Why Grace? Because during World War II, she joined the American Navy, and thanks to her impressive brain, was able to understand the inner workings of the Harvard Mark I, one of the earliest computers, which occupied an entire room, and explain it to others in an understandable language. It was her idea that computers should understand instructions written in English rather than complicated symbols so that anyone could learn to code. She is widely known as the mother of computing. She helped develop COBOL, which is a programming language that is still being used. It was very popular in businesses and banking, and it's still being used in a lot of large corporations because these systems are huge. And I worked in COBOL for a number of years. I studied computer programming, was a programmer and analyst and project manager for many years. And even back then, without the internet, as a programmer, we heard about Grace Hopper. I don't know if we heard about her at college, but I definitely remember having discussions at work about her because there was someone I worked with who had seen her speak, and he talked about having seen her speak. She was still alive at the time. She died, I don't remember when, in the 90s, I think. She retired at age 79. So yeah, I've got to do Grace Hopper. I mean, she influenced my life. That I didn't know at the time that I was learning those languages how much of an influence she was. So I'm going to do Grace Hopper, definitely. Let's see, who else is in this one? Ada Lovelace, I believe, Ada Lovelace was also another woman early in the world of computing. Um, I was trying to see if there was an index or table of contents, and I don't see it. Yes, Ada Lovelace. She um, she approached mathematics and science with creativity and never-ending desire, even though she lived a couple of centuries ago. And she had ideas for a mechanical computing machine. When she saw one that had been made, she had ideas of other ways it could be used. Harriet Tubman helped slaves escape. Diana, Princess Diana. Hypatia of Alexandria. She's known as the first female mathematician in recorded history. She was also an astronomer, a philosopher, an educator, and one of the last great thinkers of Alexandria in Egypt. There's also some I don't know, I didn't know about. Misty Copeland, ballet. Ballerina. She was the first African American to be made principal dancer of the American Ballet Theater in New York City. So I need to go to the yarn shop and get some yarn to make some of these. There's Queen Elizabeth the First. Joan of Arc. So these would be great if you have, oh yeah, Mary Shelley with, you can even make the little Frankenstein monster. Yeah. These would be good if you have young girls, but I don't have young girls in my life. So I'm going to make these for myself. I don't know if they really stand up on their own. That's a question I have. I mean, they're shown standing up on their own, but I just have my doubts of how that's going to stand up on its own. I may have to buy some sort of stand that, and these were written by Carla Mitrani. They're published by a David and Charles book. David and Charles has some other amigurumi books out that are really neat. So hopefully in the next week or so, I'll get over to the yarn shop and make some yarn purchases to get started on Grace Hopper. She was an admiral. She ended up being an admiral. Again, I plan to also, especially the women. I'm not that familiar with their history. It would be a good jumping off point to read more about them at any age and any gender, to learn more about who these women were and their impact on our lives. I did buy these secondhand through thrift books. My local yarn store didn't have them, and a lot of times to order books, they have to make a minimum purchase that they don't have room for lots of books, and they can't just invest in having 100 books on the shelf to sell. They have to look at what's selling and they have a limited space. But do support your local yarn shops. Check there first to see if they have it in stock. If not, a local bookstore or, like I said, thrift books. I think there's another online used bookstore that I can't think of that are a little bit more friendly in some ways. If you have problems with Amazon, that's a good way to do that. So that's all for today. Please leave me a comment below, if you will. Click the like button and subscribe. And if there's anything you have questions about, leave a comment below. Tell me what you're working on. Are you knitting, crocheting, cross stitching, some other craft? I just started knitting. It's been 6 or 7 months now, and I really do enjoy it. So, excuse me, my nose is itching. It's pollen season. And I think that's all for today. I keep telling myself I'm gonna try to do more videos, do them more often. I end up though going, oh yeah, I'll do a video today, but first let me finish this thing so I can show it. And I need to stop doing that because I should just set aside a time once a week to do a quick video, at least a 15 to 30-minute video. So happy crafting, and I hope you're having good weather for you all, and that you're finding ways to find joy and some comfort in these times. And I will see you later. Bye.